Okay. So I am going to convene an executive session. I need a motion, please. Thank you, Carol B. I need a second, please. Thank you, Linda. All those in favor, show of hands. We have everybody. Sue, I'm guessing that you're frozen, but are voting for this.
Oh, here, I'm voting.
Great, thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
Okay, Linda, I apologize. We don't need to go into executive.
Well, then we won't vote on that.
I thought I had said that. My apologies.
Not a problem, not a problem at all. Okay, so now we are going to say the pledge to the flag. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 people. Oh, okay, as long as there's 6 of us. 1, 2, 3, 4,
5 of us.
5. No, 6. We're 6.
There's 6.
There's 6 of us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. So any public comments? Do we have to let the public in for public comments?
Nobody's here.
Jane,
No
is
problem.
everybody in?
Yep, everybody's in.
Oh, okay, so no problems. So now we are going to the whole other reason for this, the budget. Susan, am I guessing you're on? Ah. Whose presentation is this? Susan's? Susan, you're muted.
Yes, it's Susan.
Jen, you're muted also.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you see that, everybody?
Yeah.
Jennifer
Budgeting
Mitchell, you're
part
muted.
two?
Okay,
Okay, so
Got it.
yes, this is part 2 of our budgeting presentation for the 2022-2023 school year. So Vicki and Jen and I will be co-presenting again tonight. So we'll start with just reviewing the components of the BOCES budget. So we talked about it last month. We have the administrative budget, we have the capital and rental budget, and then we have the program and services budget. And the administrative budget is the only component of our budget that our component school districts vote on. So we reviewed the admin and we reviewed capital and rental last month. And so this month, we're going to talk about COSER budgets. So as you all know, we have a number of COSERs from instructional to management services to itinerants. And so we're going to talk to you about the process, talk to you about how we establish tuitions, talk to you about where BOCES gets its revenues, and also review our grants for the 2022-2023 school year, or anticipated grants. And is that changing for you guys? Yay!
Yes.
Okay. So these, I think everybody is familiar with the types of services that BOCES offers, from career and tech to general instruction, like alternative education and our GED programs, to instructional support services and all the great professional development that Maria and her team provides, to the management services like the central business office and the shared facilities that we run in those areas. And the parentheses are the COSER series range. So like a career and tech is a 101, whereas a arts and ed would be a gen ed program and would be a COSER 403. When we look at the entire BOCES general fund and all of the COSERs that we provide, really we're putting together about 50 mini budgets that comprise our entire general fund budget. And then we talked a little bit about transfer budgets last year or last month. Those are the types of things that don't have revenue sources, but that we all have to pay into, like O&M, like our technology support, and we reviewed those last month. So when we talk about planning for upcoming services, it takes a lot of work, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of communication. And that communication is internal and external. So my team, meaning Vicki, Jen, and I, we work with our executive principals, with the supervisors of the non-instructional programs, and we share information in terms of what their program needs are, what resources they need to run their program efficiently and effectively. Maybe it's time to upgrade equipment. Maybe it's time to renew curriculum. Maybe it's technology and software. And then we have external communication because we have to work with our districts because that's who we serve. So we get information from our districts in terms of our initial services requests, and then we talk to them at superintendent's meetings, at business officials meetings, at SCIDA meetings, and we listen to their needs. And if there's something that we need to adjust because their needs are changing, then we work that into the budgeting process as well as into the program planning process. So it's a lot of collaboration. And then when we get all that information, that's when, the business office does a lot of number crunching in terms of making sure that all of our contracts and salary obligations are loaded into each one of those individual budgets based on their needs in terms of teacher resources or maybe teaching assistants or clerical, et cetera. And then we put all that together. We do some cross-checking, and that basically is what is how we develop our general fund budget. And then we establish tuitions. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the data behind some of those calculations and how we get to tuitions and how we get to our program and service charges. So I'm going to start with COSER 101, which this is our career and technical education COSER. So you all know that we have about 14 programs within here, from animal science to broadcasting to culinary. We bill for this particular program on a 2-year average. So for the upcoming school year, 22-23, our CTE 2-year average is 401. So you can see that that is down a little bit from the previous year, which it had been 412. So we basically take our entire CTE budget and we divide it by 401, and that basically establishes our tuition for the upcoming school year. I will say that this is the first time in a couple of years that our CTE 2-year average has been down. I think a lot of that has to do with COVID and the changing enrollments in our schools. And then the CTE programs receive their online application process comes in. So we take a look at all of those numbers by classroom, and that's how we adjust our staffing and wait for the districts to give us their final services request. So that's a little bit about CTE. And before I let Jen take the next slide, because we're going to tag team here and divide and conquer. If any of you have any questions while we're speaking, don't hesitate to say, hey, wait, I don't understand that, because we can't see all of you throughout our presentation, and we want to make sure that we're answering all of your questions. Jen, I'll let you cover.
Okay, Susan, will I be able to switch the slides, or you have?
No, but I'll try to pay attention. You can just nudge me if I don't do it quick enough.
Okay, that's fine. So 201 shows a steady decline in enrollment. We recuperated a little bit in 2021 with a slight increase, but overall we are hitting 10-year lows in that program. The enrollment usually does not change once the school year starts. So the projections for 22-23 should remain pretty steady. One of the issues we see in this program is that the districts are able to educate these students in-house, and so that accounts for part of the reduction here. 206, this one has really struggled with a steady decline, again, based on student IEP needs. The districts have been able to educate these students in district as well. One of the positive things about this program is that the enrollment does fluctuate once the school year begins. So we will monitor this closely every month, and we can adjust the budget based on additional revenues or additional classrooms and any information like that. 206 ITAP, this trend tends to bounce around a little bit, but has shown a steady decline in the last 2 years. And again, based on projections, the decline continues. Similar to 206, enrollment does fluctuate here as well. So once enrollment begins, if we have additional students, we can make changes based on the revenue here.
And then 207, our 813 program, which we started in the 2011-12 school year, that program obviously has grown in numbers. And we currently have about 12 sections of this program. So this is a more stable program in terms of enrollment. Our current enrollment is 81 and we're anticipating about 76, a slight decline, but we probably will pick up a few kids in this particular coaster. As Jen said, we tend to pick up kids throughout the year. One of the other things I didn't mention earlier, when we talk about the meetings, since we are a smaller BOCES, we do meet with the districts and their CSE chair and their business administrator. So that's typically Jen and myself, Jen Mitchell, and one of the principals or both of the principals. And the great thing about that is we talk to the districts about who may be aging out of a program and graduating, who they anticipate as additional enrollments because they have new kids coming into district or, you know, new kindergarten students. And then we also talk about students that are able to transition back to district and who they are looking to take back. And so that really helps us as we look at our trend data and plan for the upcoming year. And it also guides them in giving us an accurate estimate in their initial services request. So we have really great relationships with our districts, which is super helpful. And that's how we basically plan for our special ed programming.
The 408 coaster is our alternative education where the students come if they haven't had success in the classroom at their home school or at their district school. And so when Susan talks about the ability to properly predict the enrollment, you'll see here that the initial service request is at 47. And the difference in all ed is that the districts actually pay for the seats that they purchased and that they're charged accordingly. So they reserve a spot and they have to pay for all of their spots, regardless of whether or not they use them. However, as we base our tuition rates on the initial service request, the ISRs, the final service request could potentially fluctuate either going up or going down. So in this case, we decided to budget conservatively based on the trend data, because what we can see is that although they initially say that they're going to purchase 47 seats, our current enrollment is actually 35. So we're going to base our tuition on that. So that way there, we make sure that our budget comes in where it needs to be and that the coaster at the end of the year is not short. So we're not certain, again, how COVID has impacted this and whether or not that will change as more kids get back into the classroom on a regular basis in their home district. So that's definitely something that we'll have to keep an eye on and plan accordingly in case districts do need more seats.
So as I said earlier, we base our budgets on the initial services request that we receive for districts and that trend. And that is just a snapshot. We weren't going to go through like 50 coasters to show you all the trend data. But just like we do this for enrollment, we also do this for district participation for other programs that are not instructionally based and not student based. So then, like Vicki said, we wait for the final services request to come in. And again, we are very blessed to have great relationships with our districts. So they typically give us a heads up before we get to the FSR timeline if they are going to make a shift. And at the current time, I'm not aware of any programs that our districts are not anticipating renewing with us as we plan for the 2022-2023 school year.
So every budget within, we talk about our coasters, and each coaster has its own budget. So we talk about our 50 or so mini budgets that we create. And within each one, we have different categories where you put different types of expenditures. So staffing is, of course, a big one. And then where you have your equipment and supplies are in a certain object code, and just based on your expenses, it's broken down. And so that way there, it makes it easier to track year over year where your expenses really are and how you're spending your money and maybe where you need to make adjustments. It also enables you, when you have your 5-year plan or extended long-term planning, to account for any equipment that you might need to have over time, or, you know, to watch how your expenses are with different supplies and materials in the classroom. And so those codes, the equipment, the supplies and material, the contractual, there's a little bit more discretionary wiggle room in that. It's not as set forth, such as your staffing and your fringe benefits, which are contract based. And Susan, if you go to the next slide for me, you can see this just pulls together the list of the different object codes, the different areas. And 80% of our budget and school district budgets are in the certified salaries, the non-certified salaries, and then all the benefits that are tied to that, whether it's retirement or health insurance. And then the other things that we also pay for, workers' comp and unemployment and the FICA and Medicare that we have to pay. So it shows you that there isn't a lot of discretionary wiggle room within the budget itself, except for in those equipment, supplies, contractual things, conferences, that sort of thing. So it doesn't leave a lot of space. So when we talk about our mini budget, so we wanted to show you the difference between when you look at a school district will have their budget and, you know, they will show the school district budget puts all of their benefits in one budget code. So they all start with the 9,000. You can see that on the left-hand side. And so all of your retirement, your ERS will go in one line, your TRS will go in another line. And that's for your entire school district budget, which is great and much simpler than what we do here at BOCES. Because here at BOCES, we actually have to break down those charges. So each COSER gets charged the fringe benefits associated with the salaries within that COSER. So if you see on the right-hand side, you can see that every COSER will have the retirement lines and the Social Security lines at FICA and Medicare. And so each one is broken down. So every time we have a little shift, it's been quite the learning experience for me this year, because it is every little budget, every time we say, you know, this person maybe is going to be needed in a different area based on our initial service request or on our trend data, and we move that person, we then have to readjust every line in every COSER that we've touched. So it's quite the intricate process just to make sure that everything is where it needs to be and to make sure that we're setting our rates in a way that, again, we don't want to be short at the end of the year. So.
So this is a review of how we develop the tuition in a special ed COSER based on a per pupil tuition. So the total number of teachers and support staff has to be determined first based on the classroom ratio and the projected enrollment. Along with the classroom teachers, there are also many shared teaching staff like art, music, and gym. Each COSER splits a share of all of those shared staff, so that becomes an FTE in the COSER as well. As we spoke a few weeks ago, we reviewed the purchasing needs of each COSER, and that makes up their supplies and contracts. Easily, the benefits is calculated based on the top there, where we do the FTEs for the teachers and the teaching assistants. And each COSER also pays into the non-revenue areas, such as O&M and technology. And the next slide will show you in more detail what those numbers look like for this example.
I know that may be a little bit hard to see on your, well, maybe easier on your screen since you're here, you're on your computers as opposed to a big screen.
So in this example, you will see we can put the proposed budget against the current year budget, and that way we can look for any large discrepancies to see. Here we would note if there were any staffing changes. In this particular example, you will see in the 800s, there is a net change of, I think it's 98,000. I can't really read it. And then in the 960, there is an opposite net change of 68,000. And this is where this year we created a shared counselor's position, or not, a shared counselor's COSER. So each special ed COSER now will pay a portion of the lump sum of all of those counselors. So you'll see where we took it out of the regular employee benefits, but now it's going to be lumped into the transfer benefits. So in that area is where we can look for any drastic changes to make sure that our tuition is going to be correct.
And that's similar, just to interject. So we talked about, we did that with teaching assistants, we did that with clerical, we did that with principals. So we put all of those positions in a 700 code, and then we charge it out by the FTE so that each program is paying the same amount of money, as opposed to a COSER having the highest paid principal because they've been here for 20 years, or the highest paid clerical person, or even with the counselors. And I think, as Vicki said, you know, there's a lot of shared staff and a lot of COSERs to manage. So by putting all the counselors in a 700 code, we could manage and make sure that we had all the FTEs. And then we work with the principals to find out what percentage of the pie, of the whole counseling pie, whether it's a social worker or a school psychologist, each one of our instructional programs needs. And then we do the math behind that and do the transfer codes associated with the FTE that they're using from that pool of counseling and support services. I think I'm next. So we wanted to show you like a different type of service and how that budget is put together. So we have a lot of itinerant shared staff. So in this particular case, COSER 304 is our teacher for the visually impaired. So we have 5 school districts that buy into that service and provide us with an estimated number of hours that they're going to need of her time to see students that require her services. So that budget is basically comprised of the teacher and the salaries associated with that position, any supplies or contractual items that the individual needs, and then the transfer charges. So there still is some clerical support and a principal who supervises and does the evaluations of this particular staff member. And then we take those hours and then we come up with an hourly rate. So for the 2022-2023 school year, we anticipate a rate of $209 per hour, which is a little bit over a 3% increase from the current year. And that's factoring in the estimated hours that the districts provided on their initial services request. And I just took those hours and I created a little spreadsheet to show you like approximately what percentage of the itinerant TBI each one of the participating districts is currently using. And that shifts based on if they had a new student come into their district. This particular person also does evals when a district asks for them. And is a very valuable staff member who is irreplaceable, if you ask me. So that's pretty much how the COSER 304 goes. And again, here's the 143,905, and then we just divide that out on an hourly basis. Again, anticipating like, why would this COSER go down instead of up? In the past, we had more than one person providing services. This need does change periodically. So we did have other staff members. We had a retiree come back and do some work. So right now, when needed, she works extra. But if at one point in time, several years ago, I want to say it was like 5 or 6, we actually had 2 TBIs working for us. But that need changed and we dropped down to 1. I think I'm right with 5 or 6 years ago, right, Jen? Somewhere around there.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
My 2 Jens. All right, so how does a BOCES charge for service? I think that one is also, no, that one's yours, Jen, sorry.
So I previously, we showed the example of how we do the per pupil tuition, and Susan gave the example of the 2-year average for career and tech. Susan also just gave the FTE per itinerants, but we also do a flat rate fee per district, and one of those examples would be our arts and education. And they also utilize, do a actual utilization based for performances. So a lot of these have a combined rate that we have to come up with. The same goes for school improvement, the library, and health and safety. They have a Arwada basis as well as an actual utilization basis. So each one of those rates has to be calculated.
And we talk about how we calculate these rates because we need to get the money in, right? So we need to pay for all of our programs. And so we do that by the service charges to our component districts here within Sullivan County. We do it through non-component districts, through our cross contracts. And that's the bulk of the revenues that do come in. We also receive some money in grants, and we'll talk a little bit more about that next. And then individual tuition fees, a little bit of interest that we talked about last time with the bank. That's practically nothing these days, but you know, it could come back up. And the important thing to remember about BOCES revenues is that we don't levy taxes. So everything that we collect, we have to plan our budgets properly. We need to charge our districts, both component and non-component, accordingly to make sure that we meet all of our expenses. And that's the most important thing. If there is any, if we manage to come in under budget, which is always a good thing, whether it's at home or at work. It's always a good thing to come in under budget. And when we do that, it's important to remember that we don't get to keep that money and we don't get to roll that into the next year. All of that goes back to our districts, which is why it's even more important that on a yearly basis, we're starting from zero and we need to make sure our rates and our tuition fees are where they need to be in order to be able to meet all of our expenses.
So just a summary of what we have this year for grants. The CAP grant has been approved through December of 2022. That one runs on a calendar year. The total for that grant is $213,630. Library services grant for this year is $158,095. The teacher center is current for July of 21 through June of 22 at a cost of $75,533. And the Perkins also runs school year, so July of 2021 to June of 2022 for $136,456. So the total grant is just under $600,000 at $583,000.
So just to go over some key points in the BOCES budgeting process, as you can see from all the information that we provided or have been providing to you, it's a very collaborative process, both internally within the BOCES, working with all of the different departments, the supervisors, the principals, and externally getting data from the districts to make sure that we know what their expectation of our services is as we're planning for the upcoming school year. As Vicki pointed out on several occasions, and Jen and I did as well, each COSER budget is independent, so that every specific COSER has to have the revenues to support its expenses. Again, a nuance of a BOCES compared to a school district is I think we have more expansion and contraction because our service levels go up and down throughout the year. Sometimes students move out of the area, and if they were enrolled in our special ed programs, then once their end date is entered, then the district is no longer responsible for that tuition. We have some non-revenue generating services that we've spoken about before in regards to O&M and tech support and those types of things. Again, when you think about administrators, and if you've been involved in a district budgeting process, program administrators are included in each one of the COSERs that they are in charge of and that they supervise, while central administration, people like myself and Vicki and Dr. DeFore are part of the administrative budget. And again, dissimilar to a school district, our retirees' health insurance has to be in the administrative budget by law. And so, that's a big chunk, almost 50%, like we talked about, at least in the mid 40s, it's getting closer to 50%. So that's, again, something that's slightly different for us compared to a school district. And we really have no funding outside of our school district revenues and the grant. So it's very important for us to work with them and to monitor our expenses to make sure that we have the revenues to support our services, because we don't ever want to have to go back to our districts and ask for more money because we didn't budget appropriately. So that's kind of the process. We're happy to answer any questions on the program and service side. And like I said, there's 50 of those little budgets. And we, I think when people talk about budget, they turn to the business office and they look at me and they look at Vicki and they look at Jen, and they don't realize how many people are part of the process and how important the information exchange is in order for all of us to budget properly and for us to come up with accurate rates for our districts.
Susan, can you unshare your screen?
I sure can.
Thank you. Questions, anyone?
I'm good.
Susan,
Good.
Jen, Vicki, thank you all very much. If you folks have any questions after you look over the presentation, you can email them directly to Susan, Vicki, or myself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back to you,
Good.
Linda.
Thank you, dear. Personnel matters. Do we have personnel matters? let's just see, I'm back to this. Oh, we do. We have quite a number of personnel matters. Sorry about that. I thought these were on the 18th. Okay, does anyone have an, oh, first I need a motion. I'm sorry. First I need a motion. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Linda. Does anyone have any questions about these? Come on. No one? Okay, then
I have one, Linda. Sorry.
Linda, go right ahead.
Susan or Jen, as far as under the resignations, I know now you guys are reporting to us as far as if it's sufficient time or not. And the one staff member has insufficient notice. Is that for all employees you're going to be letting us know that, or just the retiree ones?
So that's anyone that doesn't, I've been putting it on there.
Okay, just so that when I'm reviewing it. Thank you.
And Jen, the purpose is to put it in the record?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
Staff are notified that insufficient notice will be on their record.
Irregardless of what you think or what you may have seen on, my husband called my attention to it on Facebook and again on the Mid Hudson, whatever that is. As Bob said to me in response to my telling him about it, people are not paying attention or being presented with the whole thing. You can't fight the fight on Facebook. It's just not worth it, you know? So these whole things with this whole audit, I just want to reiterate to everyone so they know it. The only problems the audit had was about the documentation, not the fact that, except in one case, that people got paid what they deserved to get paid. No one got overpaid and no one got paid for nothing. So please feel strong if someone debates this with you, that you can tell them that, you know. Just thought I'd throw that in. Okay, I need a vote on personnel matters if there's no other questions. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's unanimous of those who are here, Jean. And then board comments. Anybody have any comments they want to make? I'm not even going to go around. I'm just going to ask you. Okay, our next meeting is the 18th. It's our regular meeting. It will start at, am I correct? It will start at 5:30?
It's the 15th and it will start at 5:30. 4:30 is the budget, or not the budget, the workshop.
So we will have a workshop again on the 15th.
Yeah, we're going to have a workshop before every meeting so that we
Okay.
can make good progress on the strategic plan.
Fabulous. Okay, I just wasn't sure if we were having both of them. Good, excellent. And Maria, again, thank you for all the work and guidance you have put into this, you know, for us. I mean, I certainly couldn't have gotten from A to B with any kind of anything anyway. So thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you,
Kathy,
Linda.
you are on.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I need a second. Thank you, Carol. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Susan, Jen,
you.
Vicky,
Ladies.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a good
thank you.
night.
The
Night,
presentation
everyone.
was
Night, all.
wonderful. Yeah, appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.